Hello?
Hi, is this Joshua?
Yeah.
All right, Joshua, this is John Ziegler. Legally, I need to tell you that I'm recording this conversation. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. Joshua, I want to just go through your story with regard to Aaron Fisher and your testimony in the case and everything surrounding it. Take me back to the time that you believe to be the fall of 2008. You are a neighbor of Don Fisher, or Don Hennessy now, and Aaron Fisher. For how long at this point are you a neighbor of theirs?
At least by that point, at least 3 years.
And when I say neighbor, how close are your two houses together?
There's only a 6-inch wall between our homes.
So you're when you say you're neighbors, you're really neighbors.
If I knock on my living room wall, she hears it in her living room wall.
Okay. And so at some point, Dawn and Aaron get into a discussion out on the front porch, and are you right there witnessing the whole thing?
Yes.
When you say you're witnessing it, are they aware that you're there?
Yeah.
And so you could hear everything that they said, correct?
Correct.
All right. So tell me what you heard and saw.
I heard Aaron disputing with his mother why he didn't want to go with, I guess at that time, Jerry Sandusky. And
when you say go with, you mean go out like that night or something?
I guess it was for like a day or a night or something.
Okay.
I don't know what the projected duration was. I just know that he was due to go with him.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of him wanting to go there, he wanted to go to a friend's house.
Do you remember whose friends he wanted to go to?
I believe it was another boy named Aaron, or Theron.
Theron Mock?
Theron Mock, yeah.
Okay. So he wanted to go to Theron Mock's place, but Jerry wanted to go take him somewhere. He didn't want to go with Jerry. And so then what happens?
She was asking him, why, and he's like, well, he's weird. He weirds me out. He makes me feel weird. He's just going into so many different, variations of the weird thing, and she's like, well, that's not enough. I have plans. I've got your brother here. I've got your sister there. You need to go here. You're not messing this up. I have a night plan, and you're not effing this up for me.
She says to her son, you're not effing up my night out?
Yeah.
Now, was this common for her to go out by herself at night?
Yeah. Well, not all the time. I mean, it was like maybe a every 2-week thing. She like her mommy day out or whatever.
Okay, because I've been told that she was
go out to the bars.
Right. I've been told that she was quite a partier, but okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So she wants to go out, and she's telling Aaron, no, you got to go out with Jerry because I have plans.
Correct.
Okay. And so then what happens next?
In my opinion, he sees that his excuses aren't working, so he steps it up a notch and he says, well, he touched me. And that's when he had her attention. Well, how do you mean he touched me? Well, he touched me over my pants. And a little bit of arguing and going back and forth before she pulls him inside their home, her side of the house. But before they did that, the statement was made, well, you got to say more than that. You got to tell me more than that. I can't go on just, he touched me on my pants. You got to say more than that. And that's when they pulled it inside their house.
Okay. And then what happens?
About a half hour to an hour goes by, and she comes over, and her words were, I'll own that motherfucker's house.
And when she says that motherfucker, who is she referring to?
Jake Dusky.
And how do you know that?
She said it several times. And
when you heard her say that, did you ask her, what do you mean, or did you?
I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, I even brought back the point that, he was just trying to get out of going with him. How do you know that? Well, things were said.
Okay, and how did you interpret that?
Just that maybe he had said something that I wasn't there to hear.
Okay, and so did you guys have much more conversation about this?
Yeah, actually a lot. It went back and forth over the next couple months of her giving bits and pieces of how things were going and little tidbits on what she was going to do with her money and.
Okay, well, let's go back. Let's go back to that original night, though. So they have this conversation. Aaron makes some sort of very vague claim about Jerry creeping him out. They go back into the house. half hour later or so, she comes out and says, "I'm going to own that motherfucker's house." What was your reaction to that whole interplay? What did you think was going on?
I thought it was bullshit, because any mother that just hears that her kid was touched wouldn't go immediately into what she's going to gain from it. It'd be, how can I help my kid?
Mm-hmm. And as far as you know, this is before there's been any claim at all to the school, to the authorities?
There's been nothing. This is the very first night. Okay,
very first night. So this is the origins of the whole story. Now, based upon what you saw of Aaron telling his mother about Jerry, did you buy at that point that he had been a victim of sexual abuse?
No.
And why did you not buy that?
Just because of the way Aaron was. I mean, I don't know what a sexual victim looks like, or what he acts like, but in my mind, that was not a picture of a abused child.
Now, was this something that would not have been? Would this have been outside of Aaron's character to make up a story?
In my opinion, no.
So he made up stories all the time?
Well, not that I'm aware of, but I mean, I wouldn't have put it past him.
Okay, but you had seen, had you seen interaction between Jerry and Aaron much? Or?
No.
Okay.
The only thing I ever got to see was like the pickups and drop-offs.
Okay, but you never thought there was anything weird at that time?
No.
Okay.
I mean, whenever he got out of the vehicle, he was always happy to show, all these things that he was seeing out of it.
Mm-hmm. So to your knowledge, there was never any issues with Jerry until that night when that first came up with Aaron.
Right.
Okay. So after this extraordinary interchange, does Dawn keep talking about how much money she's going to make from this?
Yeah, about how she's going to have a big old house out in the country with a white picket fence with room for the dogs to roam. Because you got to realize at this point we're living in government housing. We're not allowed to have dogs above 20-pound dogs. And she had, I think, 2 Labradors.
Mm-hmm.
All right, she's hiding these things illegally. She's not even allowed to have them. She could be thrown out at any moment if they catch her.
So is that why you remember the quote about my dog with room for my dogs to roam?
Right.
And what is your reaction to? I mean, how often is this happening that she's mentioning how much money she's going to make from the Jerry Sandusky claim?
Every time she talks about it, she talks about how great their lives are going to be once this is all taken care of.
Now, to be clear, this is not even close to when the story becomes public. Is that accurate?
Correct. I mean, after that first night, I guess she made a few phone calls, but everything was still in the investigation stage. I remember a couple of investigators coming and talking to her, and then she'd come over and tell us how that went and how they feel that she's entitled to a lot. And
so she was bragging about this constantly.
Well, whenever something new would come into the picture, yeah.
So she was updating you on, hey, we talked to this person, and and then the money would come up in the conversation. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, and so, and what are you thinking during this time about all this?
That it's, 1, grimy, 2, that it's bullshit.
And again, I want to understand why you're so sure this was bullshit. I mean, what's screaming to you this is bullshit?
Just her reaction as a parent, and then his demeanor after he's come out about it. I mean, a child that's been raped isn't going to be all happy about all the money he's going to get, and a mother who has had her child raped, I mean, if that was my child that just told me that, there wouldn't even have been a child. I would have been the one sitting in jail.
Okay. Could you tell me, did Aaron also, hold on a second, my child is screaming at me. Grace, I am on the phone. Can you give me a second?
I want my pants.
Okay. Go see Mommy, okay?
Talk to yourself.
Yes, I am.
Yes. If your child comes
hold on. Please. All right, thanks. I'm sorry. Okay, let's go. All right, so we're back.
If your child comes to you and says they were touched, would there even be in a question that you'd be the one sitting in jail right now?
Right, I understand that. So let's go back to the first conversation that you overheard and then took part in. And Dawn's talking about the money and giving you updates. What about Aaron? Is he also talking about money at this stage?
At first, he was real quiet, withdrawn about everything, almost like a sense of shame. And then he started coming out about how he's going to have a Jeep and he's going to have a fast car and, you know, he's going to have this, he's going to have that.
And when and do you know about when this was? This is, again, way before the story is public. Is that right?
Correct. It was before I seen Jerry Sandusky being arrested on TV.
Okay. Do you know how much? I mean, my understanding is that
months.
Many months? Because your recollection from our prior conversation is that there was a dramatic lull at some point from the time when Dawn and Aaron start talking about getting money from their claims against Jerry Sandusky to the time when Jerry is arrested. Is that your recollection?
Yeah, it got quiet there for a little bit, and then everything just blew up. Okay.
Now, let's go back for a second to what might have been happening with regard to Dawn's reaction to Aaron's story and the immediate thought that there could be money involved. Are you familiar with the Barry Bender case?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, are you aware that Dawn's brother, DJ Fisher, was involved in that particular case? Do you have any knowledge to that?
Yeah, she had said something along the lines that her brother was involved in that whole Bender Boys case thing.
Now, do you remember, did that happen? Did she tell you that before all this Jerry stuff happened?
Yeah, that was before well, no, actually, I'm not sure. It might have been right around the same time.
Might have been around the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, but regardless of the time period, do you remember Dawn telling you that her brother was involved in the Dr. Barry Bender case?
Yes, I remember her saying that. You know.
Did she say he was an accuser in the Barry Bender case? Did she say anything about it?
I think it was just more along the lines of that, you know, they were involved in it.
Okay. All right. So, because it's my understanding that she has told, I know that she's told other people that her brother was an accuser and that she actually helped him become an accuser in that case, and that they got a settlement from Dr. Barry Bender. And this was several years before the claims that Aaron would end up making against Jerry. All right, so let's go back to the timeline. So there's this lull. You're thinking this is all bullshit. During the lull, what did you think happened to the case with Aaron and Jerry?
I just thought that maybe they had found it out to be incorrect and that it was dropped and that, you know, she just wasn't going to come out and say, hey, I lost, you know, they found out the truth, you know, whatever. So I just thought that it was just a dropped subject. And then in between that and then she moved. She said, I have to go and the investigators or the prosecution wants me to job so that I can be a hardworking mom on the public's eyes.
Now, hold on a second. So she says, this is amazing. She tells you, quote, that the prosecution wants me to get a job so that I can create a positive public perception?
Correct.
Are you sure that's what she said?
Yeah, she says I need to have a job for all this so that I can have a better image in the public eye.
And this is before Jerry is arrested?
Correct.
Before it's ever even public?
Correct.
All right, and she...
Because prior to this, she'd never held a job more than a month, in my knowledge.
Okay, but she made it clear to you that the prosecution told her, you better get a job so that...
The prosecutors, the investigators, somebody told her to get a job. It looked better for her to have a job.
And there was no doubt in your mind that it was something having to do with those who were bringing the potential charges, whether it was...
Correct. I mean, I know Dawn wouldn't have thought to get a job on her own because she hates work.
So it had to be somebody else. But do you remember her telling you that? Who it was that told her to get a job, or just just an implication that somebody else had told her to get a job?
She said, they said, her words were, they said I have to get a job better in the public's eyes.
Okay.
In my mind, that has to be like the prosecution or...
Fair enough. Okay. So she gets this job, and then all of a sudden, Jerry gets... She moves out, and Jerry gets arrested. What's your reaction when you see that Jerry has been arrested?
Even then, I wasn't real worried. I'm like, well, it has to go to trial, and that's where they'll see that Aaron and Dawn are bullshitting. So I really wasn't too concerned, but at the same time I was like, well, maybe I should tell them what I know.
And so what did you do?
So I did a little research, found Joe Amendola was representing the defense, and I contacted him by phone numerous times. I think it was actually upwards of a month before he responded to me.
Now, were you surprised that it took a month for Joe Amendola to respond to your inquiry?
Well, yes and no. He told me it was, that he had a lot of stuff to go through and people to talk to. So, and in a case like this, I could see why.
Right. So then, did you ever meet Joe Amendola before the trial?
I met a private investigator on his behalf.
Okay. But you never met Joe until the trial?
Correct.
Now, and did you meet the prosecution before the trial?
Yes.
And what happened when you met the prosecution?
They hounded me and hounded me and hounded me until I agreed to an interview at the near park. And when I was there, they were just really fighting for Aaron's side there. They were like, well, isn't it possible? Everything was, isn't it possible? And isn't it true? Or isn't it, I could see that they were just fishing.
Did you feel like they were trying to get you to change your story?
A little bit, yes.
And what made you feel that way?
The way that they were, the questions, the way that they were wording things.
Can you think of a particular example?
No, no.
What about the fact that, and I think you had mentioned to me previously that they wanted you to think about, well, isn't it possible that Aaron's reaction wasn't what you thought it would be because he was hiding his abuse?
Yeah. They're like, maybe he's just trying to put on a public face.
Right. Did it feel to you as if the prosecution, you said they were fishing, did it feel to you like they were trying, when you say fishing, were they trying to come up with an explanation for something that didn't make a lot of sense?
I really don't know what to say. What exactly can you maybe bring that across a different way?
Well, I guess what I'm just asking is when you say they were fishing, what does that mean? What do you mean when you say that you felt like the prosecution was fishing?
They asked me my question. I told them my answer. They're like, well, couldn't it also be correct that, and for example, do you feel Aaron was raped? No. Well, couldn't it also be correct that he was raped and he's just putting on a different attitude, trying to get me to think that maybe this was the case? Right.
But did it work?
No.
What did you think of the prosecution's case after you had the interview with them?
Well, they started telling me about how there's all these other people coming forward and that, this isn't just about Aaron, this is about a lot of different people. That's when I started thinking, well, maybe Jerry did do something, but I know at least in the Aaron Fisher side of things, it wasn't as bad as, with Aaron, it probably wasn't as bad as what he's making it out to be. Okay,
but did you feel as if, with regard to Aaron, let's talk to, since you only know Aaron, with regard to Aaron, did you feel as if the prosecution knew what they were talking about, or did you feel as if they were barking up the wrong tree?
Yeah, barking up the wrong tree.
So you didn't think that, did you feel as if they really believed Aaron's story?
I can't make statements to that or not. I don't know what they believed and what they didn't believe.
But you weren't particularly impressed with with the prosecution. Okay, so now before we go to the trial, let's go back for a second. You got interviewed by the New York Times when the New York Times was trying to track down Aaron, and they still had his old address next to your house, and they were apparently banging on his door quite loudly late at night. And tell me what happens after that.
I came out and I was so irate that because Dawn had told me not to tell where they lived and everything else, and I was trying to do my best not to bring unwanted attention to her on her new address. But when they were banging over here at 11, I had just went out and listen, she's right up the road. Go mess with her. And that's when he started talking to me and asked me my side of things, and I don't know what compelled me to talk to him at that particular moment, other than just trying to get the right side of the story out there. But
And did you proceed to tell the New York Times reporter that you did not believe Aaron's story and why you did not believe Aaron's story?
Yeah.
And what was the reaction of the New York Times reporter when you told them that?
Like they almost made me feel like I was like a bad neighbor with an axe to grind.
Why did you feel that way?
Just the way that they had wrote it up, and the way that I think that he was trying to make a story to make Aaron out to be this poor young boy who had so much to look forward to in life and got molested.
So in other words, he wasn't interested in your side of the story that indicated that Aaron was not actually a victim.
Once he started hearing that, it was in the opposite direction that he wanted to go, then that's when it was.
Then what happened when you started telling him a story that he didn't want to hear? What happened?
It became a very short interview.
He lost interest in talking to you.
Yep.
Did you ever read the article that he ended up writing?
No, I was told about it.
Right. Well, it doesn't mention anything about you having suspicions about Aaron and Dawn's story. That probably doesn't surprise you, does it?
No.
So you believe that they just weren't interested in that angle?
Correct.
All right. Okay, so now let's go to the trial. And you testify. Now when it is learned that you're going to testify, does anything happen to you personally in your personal property?
Now this cannot be proven. That's what I was told by the police. It can't be proven, but I had 2 tires flattened and my car keyed.
And when did that happen?
The timeline is Dawn and Aaron find out that I'm talking to the defense, and they find out that I'm being subpoenaed, and immediately after is when all that happened with my vehicle.
So as soon as you get subpoenaed to testify in the Sandusky case, your vehicle gets keyed and your tires are slashed?
Yeah, punctured.
And while you can't prove it, is there any doubt in your mind that Dawn had something to do with that?
No, I believe they had something to do with it. If not Dawn, definitely Aaron.
And do you think they were? Do you think that's consistent with 2 people that are telling the truth and are not worried about what others might say about them?
No.
And so, speaking of that, tell me how it is that you came to contact me.
I had spoken to Dawn on Facebook, and she said that there's a guy out there just basically bashing her, and that I should avoid him. His name's John Kegler. I should avoid him at all costs.
She told you to avoid me at all costs.
Correct.
Now, so yet you decided to contact me. Why is that?
Well, like you had said previously, if somebody's telling the truth, doesn't have to worry about what I have to say.
So this made you even more suspicious, I'm guessing.
Right.
So you have no doubt that Dawn was trying to threaten you. Now, or maybe that's too strong a word, but certainly. No,
she wasn't threatening. Like I said, it was a typical everyday Facebook conversation. You were brought up, and it was suggested that I not talk to you. Just
now,
tell you to go away.
But did she at some point in this story tell you that she would make it worth your while if you did not?
Not at this point.
No, but at some point in the story, when at some later.
Oh, back whenever everything came out, that the news came across the TV, she's like, just don't speak to anybody. She's like, ha ha ha. It was a joke, is what I'm taking it as. She's like, I'll make it worth your while. Just keep your mouth quiet.
So after Jerry is arrested, she contacts you and says, keep your mouth quiet. I'll make it worth your while.
Yeah.
But she made it into like something that could be perceived as a joke if anyone ever called her on it.
Correct.
Now, in what format did she do this? Did she call you? Did she Facebook you? How did this message get conveyed?
That was right outside our houses here.
Okay, so she came to your house.
Yeah.
And she said, this is after Jerry gets arrested. She comes to your house. She says, keep your mouth quiet. I'll make it worth your while. Ha, ha, ha.
Correct. And like I said, I didn't listen anyway because I ended up testifying at trial.
Now, but what do you think was really going on there when she says to you, keep your mouth quiet, I'll make it worth your while?
Maybe there was something to hide.
And what do you think that something to hide was?
That the allegations weren't entirely correct that she was putting out there.
And it's your belief that this was her idea, the allegations?
Yeah.
And what are you...
I believe Aaron was coached. Not only was he coached, but, he was given the incentive. Well, if we do this, we'll get you lots of money. Because at first, like I said, after he said all this stuff, it was a little while before I had even seen him outside the house. And then when I did see him, he was shy. And then a little bit later on, then he was open and feeling good about everything, about all this money he was going to get.
All right, so let's go to the trial, and you testify, and talk to me about the experience of testifying. How did you think that went? How do you think the jury responded? I mean, just give me your sense of what happened when you testified in the trial.
As to what? Like, give me some examples here.
Well, I mean, it's just tell me about your experience of testifying at the trial.
Well, I had never met Jerry Sandusky before in my life, and that was the first time I ever got to meet him. And like I told you before, I mean, there's something definitely weird about him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that means he's a child molester, but there's definitely something weird about him.
Okay.
I would never leave my kids alone with him. I mean,
okay.
In my opinion.
Okay. Fine.
So,
but you'd never met him before, and so you thought, this guy seems weird. Of course, you'd seen him on television being called a child molester at that point, and Joe Paterno had been fired at that point, so that had to influence anybody's opinion. But okay, so tell me about your experience actually testifying.
They didn't really ask the main questions like you are. They just asked, what did she say? What was some statements she had made? And I told them about the big white house in the country with the white picket fence, and Aaron saying about how he's going to have a sports car and a Jeep. And they asked if it was my belief, if I believed anything had happened, and I said, well, if it did, it wasn't as bad as what is being said, and I don't particularly see that anything could have happened with the way that he's holding himself.
Mm-hmm. Now, by the way, go ahead.
I was reminded that rape victims sometimes, live with these types of demons for 20, 30 years before letting anybody know, and that Aaron's very courageous for bringing it out so soon.
And what was your thought about that?
Bullshit.
And why did you think it was bullshit?
I hate to, label him like this, but he was the town douchebag.
Mm-hmm.
He's just his cocky arrogance. It's just not somebody that you would see as being raped. And he was plenty strong enough for his age that, that old saying, you can't rape the willing?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always wondered, Aaron, one of the things that they tried to do at trial was to try to make Aaron much younger than he really was when he says these things happened. He says they happened based upon his timeline at the ages of 13, 14, and 15. Aaron was a strong kid, right? I mean,
yeah. I think he was football, wrestling, track.
So,
like I said, Jerry's like a decrepit old man.
So at 14 years old, I mean, Aaron's a wrestler and a track star. He's a strong kid. I mean, if you were forced to do that, not only would you think you could fight back, but you wouldn't keep going back to his house, would you?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean,
I had a friend over that 6'2", and Aaron was wrestling him in the front yard, and Aaron got the best of him. He's now 34 years old and didn't have a chance against Aaron.
And how old was Aaron at that time?
This was when all that was going on. This was right after he made that allegation and wrestled my friend Daryl in the front yard and got the best of Daryl.
So this would have been approximately 2009, which would have been only a year after he says the allegations were still going on.
Mm-hmm.
And he's getting the best of a 6'2", 34-year-old man.
Correct.
Okay, that's interesting because he's Therian Mock, who you've referenced in this interview, says that Aaron used to brag all the time about how tough he was and how he could fight people off and that he was a strong kid and all of that kind of stuff. All right, so you testify. You don't feel as if you got a chance to say the essence of what you really wanted to say. Does anybody in the news media interview you at all?
No, just that guy from Times, the New York Times.
Well, that was well before the trial, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so nobody's interested in your story.
It made me have to be a bad neighbor with an axe to grind.
Do you have an axe to grind against Dawn?
No, just that she's a terrible mother, and that you don't treat your kids the way I've seen that she's treated them.
All right, so
they weren't even children to her; they were dollar signs. This woman lived off welfare and child support. She never had to work; she had it made. And now with Aaron's little story, she's even got it made more.
Now, you mentioned that Aaron also bragged about he was going to get sports cars and a Jeep. Is that what ended up happening?
Yeah.
So, and by the way, did Dawn get the house with the dogs to roam?
Yes.
So everything you said at trial predicted about what they said they were going to get out of this has ended up happening. Is that accurate?
Yep.
I'm assuming that doesn't surprise you, does it?
No.
You and your girlfriend, or former girlfriend, also had some strong suspicions about Aaron's relationship with his sister well before he ever met Jerry Sandusky. Could you tell me about that?
Oh, we just thought that they were sometimes they were a little too lovey-dovey, I guess, on certain occasions, but then other times it was like they were going to kill each other.
Almost like they were in a romantic relationship.
Almost. I mean, there was times whenever he would lock the sister out, and she'd have to go banging door to door to reach Dawn because Dawn was out running around with her friends or wherever she was at.
And this was his half-sister, is that accurate?
Yeah.
And this would have been around the time when Aaron was approximately how old?
Let's see, I moved in here in 07 and really noticed it, so it was right around 07.
And so, have you heard rumors? Had you heard rumors previously or from other places about Aaron and his relationship with his half-sister?
No. Like I said, that was just, we had just seen it from being right next door here and thought, something ain't right about that.
And as far as you moved there after Eric Daniels, Aaron's stepfather, was already out of the picture, but what did you hear?
Apparently he was out of the picture for a while.
Right.
Before I got in here.
Right. So, but had you heard about Eric Daniels?
I had heard that, he was, I guess, abusive, mentally, physically. I didn't know anything about, sexually or nothing, but I did. Dawn had said on many occasions that he was just very, very, very bad.
And now, I had mentioned this to you in our prior conversation. Did it surprise you to find out that Eric Daniels had pled guilty to 100 counts of child molestation, including against his own child?
I've never, like I said, I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. I don't know the man. Maybe that's where, all this is stemming from.
So knowing everything that you now know, putting this all into context, going back to that first conversation that you heard and you were almost a part of because it was happening just a few feet away from you on your front porch, back in what we believe to be the fall of 2008, before any accusation is ever made by Aaron Fisher against Jerry Sandusky, what do you now think was actually happening?
I think, like I said, I think that Aaron was trying to get out of going to Jerry's because he wanted to go to his friends instead. And he was willing to say whatever it took to get out of going.
And from there, it just spun out of control because Dawn saw money signs.
Correct.
And how does that make? I mean, what is your feeling about all this? When you believe a great injustice has been done, at least with regard to Aaron and his mother. How does that make you feel?
That she's grimy.
So you think that this whole deal was a way to get money, and that Dawn was behind the whole thing, that Aaron went along with it because he got him away from Jerry, and because he also got him sports cars and a Jeep, which is what he wanted and which is what he ended up getting. By the way, what is your assessment of Aaron's current behavior around town? What do people think about how Aaron's been behaving since all this thing happened?
He's known as a douchebag.
What does that mean?
He's just known as an arrogant piece of shit, pretty much.
And why is that? Why do people feel that way?
I don't know why people feel that way. I know why I feel that way. But,
well, tell me why you feel that way.
Because I know that he got that money illfully, and then to flaunt it. You cried rape, and then you go and buy fancy things and try to gloat about them.
And that doesn't fit with what you think. That doesn't fit with your perception of how someone would respond if their story was true.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to add in all of this? Anything else we might have missed?
No.
How, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 meaning absolutely certain, 0 meaning you have the other direction. Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being certain that Aaron is lying about his abuse by Jerry Sandusky. What would you say your assessment is?
I'm going to give it an 8.
An 8. And why are you leaving the 2? Why are you not at a 10?
Well, you talking just in Aaron's case?
Just in Aaron's case.
Then I'll say a 10.
Joshua, in subsequent conversations after the first part of the interview that you and I did, you kind of remembered or mentioned a couple of new things that I wanted to ask you about. One of them had to do with comments that Dawn apparently made, Aaron Fisher's mother, apparently made regarding the Dr. Barry Bender case and her brother's apparent settlement or ability to get money from that case as an accuser against Dr. Barry Bender, who was convicted of child molestation. Could you tell us what you remember? First of all, let's just review. What is it that Dawn specifically told you directly about the Dr. Barry Bender case and her involvement or her family's involvement in that?
This was involved in it with, the family was involved with it. Her brother had gotten a settlement but squandered it away.
Now, did she tell you that, or what did she tell you?
That's what she told me.
Okay, and then what did Dawn tell your ex-girlfriend? Or what?
Apparently that she had, basically helped frontline with her brother there, helped him, I guess, just get the money.
Well, what do you remember your ex-girlfriend telling you that Dawn had told her?
That was a newspaper. She showed a newspaper of some sort that said, "See, look, my brother was involved in that."
So Dawn, your ex-girlfriend told you that Dawn showed your ex-girlfriend, who she was friendly with, a newspaper article where her brother was involved in the Barry Bender case.
Yes.
All right. And did she also did your ex-girlfriend tell you that Dawn told her that he had blown the settlement that he had gotten with Dr. Barry Bender?
Yes.
Okay. And is that consistent with statements that Dawn had made to you directly about family's involvement in the Barry Bender case?
Yes.
Okay. So you, through direct conversations with Dawn as well as conversations with your ex-girlfriend who was close with Dawn, have come to believe that Dawn helped her brother, Donald Fisher, get a settlement in the Dr. Barry Bender case, which came to a criminal conclusion in the early 2000s. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
All right. Now, did you remember connecting that at all to what ended up happening with Jerry Sandusky, or did that just never?
No, I never connected it.
Now, in retrospect, can you see that there might have?
Now, yeah, there might be some sort of connection. You know, she was well trained in how to do things.
So now in retrospect, you think, wow, maybe this is why Dawn thought immediately when you saw that conversation on the front porch. You know, she comes out and tells you, "I'm going to own that motherfucker's house," right? And so,
right.
So which is rather a remarkable evolution of thought from having first had Aaron mention that Jerry made him feel uncomfortable to less than an hour later she's telling you that she's going to own Jerry Sandusky's house. That struck you at the time as pretty fast.
Weird.
Weird. How did it strike you at the time? What was your reaction at the time?
At the time, it was just like, you know, that's not how a parent should be acting right now in this situation. Monetary value is not the first thing you go to whenever your child's been abused or assaulted or sexually molested.
Okay, but now that you know that she apparently, by her own admission, had experience in getting a settlement in this exact type of case, obviously, you know, that could be an explanation for that. Is that accurate?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So now the other thing that you kind of recollected and then told me about subsequent to our first interview was something that happened after she tells you that she's going to own Jerry Sandusky's house that very first night, that Aaron, for the first time ever, tells her that Jerry makes him uncomfortable, and I believe you said that Aaron eventually told her that he puts his hands over his jeans. Is that accurate?
He touched me over my pants.
Right.
That was the term I believe was used.
Okay. So what happens later that night? I understand that Dawn ends up coming over to your house, which is right next door. What happens at that point later that night?
She says, "Can you look up Megan's Law for me and see if Jerry Sandusky's on there?" I tried to do it on my BlackBerry, but it was too slow. At the time, their internet was off, I believe, and that's why they didn't have internet to a computer in their home. So she was using her phone, her BlackBerry device, and I guess it was too slow. And in the process of me looking that up, she found something on her BlackBerry, and the word was... By the way, I didn't find anything on Jerry Sandusky, even after she corrected me with the spelling of his first name. And she found something on her phone and said, "See, I told you he was a pervert." And I don't know what exactly it was. I'm guessing it was just some sort of like previous allegation or...
Okay, so to review, so comes over to your house later that night, says, we don't have, you know that they don't have internet access. Is that correct? You knew this previously on their computer. So she comes over. My BlackBerry is too slow. Can I use your computer? You say yes. She corrects you on the spelling of the name. It's not Jerry. It's Gerald, right? But no one finds anything on Meg.
I asked to use my computer, but I was the one that actually sat down and did the search for her.
Oh, you're the one that actually did the search?
Yes, but while she was standing there beside me with her BlackBerry. Okay,
so you find nothing on your on your computer via Megan's Law website, but in the process, she's using her BlackBerry, I guess, with your Wi-Fi. Is that right? Is that what was happening?
No, she was just using her BlackBerry standing beside me and came across something.
Okay, so she finally does find something, but it's not a Megan's Law website, and for all you know, it could have been a message board, a chat room, you don't have any of the details of what she apparently found that indicated that Jerry might have been accused previously. Is that true?
True.
Okay. Do you remember what she said at all? I mean, I think you may have already said it, but...
Yeah, I told you he was a pervert.
Okay. Did she show you what she had found?
I think she flashed it towards me, but I didn't really care to see it. She was like, "What is it?" And she was like, "Oh, see, right here. Somebody else is already saying the same thing." Okay.
All right. And did you have any impression of that entire episode? I mean, what was your... What did you think of that whole deal? I
didn't really care, honestly.
Okay. All right, now, you have not read Aaron Fisher's book and Dawn's book, have you?
No.
All right, I want to read to you from pages 48 and 49 because it appears very much to be the very same episode that you just described, but with a vastly different set of alleged facts. Here's what Aaron writes, or at least what his ghostwriter wrote for him. He writes, "It was November, and I was just about to turn 15, which would have been the same year you discussed, 2008. Now, you think it was October, but you also think it's possible it could have been early November because the Halloween decorations were still up. Is that accurate?"
Right.
So but you could not have been late November. It would have been at most early November, correct?
Yeah.
Because you remember it still being warm during the day for some reason.
Yeah, it was warm during the day, but chilly at night.
Okay, but you guys were outside. You guys were outside on your porch, right? Or at least during part of this conversation. You don't remember how cold it was or anything like that, do you?
No.
Okay. All right, so he writes, it was November. Now, the November part is that's when they eventually go to the school, is November of 2008. And Aaron writes, "And suddenly something clicked in my head. When I went home that day, Mom and her friend Kathy," do you remember Kathy being there at all?
No, I don't. No.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. I mean, it sounds almost...
I don't even know Kathy, I don't think.
Okay, it almost sounds like she's trying to create a witness there, or he is. Her friend Kathy, it's strange that Aaron remembers this, were sitting and talking in the living room. The computer was on a small table in the corner by the kitchen door, but really in the same room as Mom and Kathy. As I sat down in front of it, I asked Mom what the website was where she read about people who did bad things to kids. I said, quote, like people who are sexual weirdos, unquote. She asked if I meant the website for Megan's Law, and I said, yeah. I wanted to look up someone on there. Mom started to laugh and asked me who I wanted to look up. I said I wanted to see if Jerry was on there. She said, you want to look up Jerry Sandusky on a sex offender's website? She laughed again. I said that I just wondered whether he was on there. Mom told me that he wouldn't be on the site unless he had been convicted. Jerry wouldn't be at the second mile if he was a convicted sex offender because a sex offender wouldn't be around kids. She asked me if I was saying that he's a sex offender, and I said I wasn't saying that. I was just saying that he was weird. That's all. Then I got mad and shoved the keyboard and went outside to hang out with my friends. Do you remember Aaron having any friends there that day?
No, this was later in the evening.
Okay.
I didn't even see Aaron for the rest of that night.
All right. Now, the first part of that story that clearly doesn't make a lot of sense is Aaron would have known that they don't have internet access on their computer, right?
Right.
I mean,
unless this particular incident that he's talking about happened after the fact that he and Dawn had already did the research.
I guess that's possible, but that would be... that certainly doesn't go to the credibility of the story, does it? I mean, if what you're saying is true, if Dawn has already come to your house and done a Megan's Law website search, then I guess that is theoretically possible that these are two totally different stories, but that Dawn has already done the research on a completely different day. That's pretty interesting, except for the fact that here's the problem with that scenario. This is portrayed in the book as the first time Aaron is telling Dawn that there's a problem with Jerry. Do you follow me?
No, then I call bullshit on that.
Yeah, because you witnessed the first time. You saw them earlier that night talking to each other about this, correct?
Correct.
All right, so while we can't know for sure, that story smells like bullshit to you.
Yeah.
Okay, now, you never testified about any of this aspect of the story, anything that happened later that night, did you?
No, it was useless information.
Well, who decided it was useless information?
That was my own call.
All right. Now, so at the time, so you never told Joe Amendola's investigator or Joe Amendola about any of this aspect of it, correct?
No, I didn't think it was important.
Now, can you see why, in retrospect, I mean, I'm not trying to criticize you, but can you see in retrospect now, especially after reading Aaron's book or hearing about Aaron's book, why this might have been important?
Yeah.
But this is, to me, this is the kind of thing that's happened consistently throughout this case, where people have no way of knowing that something might fit into some other important element of the case, and they never mention it, or they're afraid to come forward because they don't want to deal with the crap storm and all this. And it's important pieces to the puzzle. So I'm not criticizing you. I'm just trying to understand. So you just never thought it was very significant. If you had to do it again, would you have mentioned this to Joe Amendola?
Yeah, probably.
Because the first of all, it goes to their credibility as to the story they're telling in the book that doesn't add up on a number of levels. And that's an important story because that's supposedly the first time that Aaron ever comes forward to Dawn to tell her there's a problem with Jerry Sandusky. And if that first story is this messed up, then I think that that's significant. I'm curious, Joshua, now that you've had a chance to take a look at all this and you know more information, thinking back on that first night where Aaron wants to get out of going to see Jerry because he wants to hang out with his friends, and then later on you hear Dawn make the statements about Jerry wanting to own his house, and then she comes over to your house to do an internet search. What do you think really happened there that night? What is your assessment of what do you think real world really happened?
I don't know. She was trying to find a pathway into what she, I guess, has done now.
Which is in what? What do you mean by
do her research before coming out?
For what purpose?
I don't know. So she knows what kind of chance she has of winning the case.
All right. So you think your sense is that this was the beginnings of her plot to make money? Is that fair?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Is there anything else that I may have missed that you wanted to add on any of this?
No.
All right, Joshua, I appreciate you're telling us this story. I'm curious if you needed to, would you take a lie detector test on any of this?
Yep.
So you would be willing to take a lie detector test that everything you just told me is the best of your recollection?
Yeah. And
you told other people contemporaneously about much of all this, correct?
Yeah.
Who did you tell contemporaneously?
What's the contemporaneous mean?
At the same time. So is it true that you told your ex-girlfriend? Is it true that you told family members about when this happened?
Yep.
All right. And again, just to reiterate, you would take a lie detector test to prove it.
Yeah.